welcome to another edition of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Bill Gelman, and Pete Amato with you saying hello as the Eagles have now gotten into the Final Four of the NFL Championship run. We're going to look at that and many things throughout the show. You know how we do it. 4 quarters plus overtime. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, as we break the huddle, the Eagles come off a resounding 38-7 triumph over the New York Giants, reestablishing the dominance they showed early in the year. Pete, what do you think when you look back on that Eagles romp over the Giants?
I was going over the rosters maybe a couple hours before the game, and I came to a thought, like, there's no way the Giants can pull this off. I mean, you go position by position, and it wasn't even close. The only close one was maybe Saquon, but our group of running backs, I feel like, have been better than him just by himself anyway. So I made a prediction before on Twitter, and I said I think I said 40-17, and people laughed, blah, 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 whatever. But wow. I mean, it was pretty close. I mean, because I just went through it. I'm like, there's no way they can stick with us. And the only thing I was worried about was the coaching. That's it. And the coaching surprised me. They did what they had to do to put the players in the best position to win the game. They let them use their talent, and it was a complete team victory. Offense, defense. Hassan Reddick, what a monster he was. I mean, somebody immediately after the game, somebody put a clip of just him running around like a maniac the whole game. What a pickup he was this year. I think he's gone kind of like, definitely he might win defensive player of the year. I think he should. But as a free agent pickup, just unbelievable pickup, because he made a big difference in that defensive line that game. As a whole team, Bradbury got an interception on his whole team. That was great to see. But the game was over within 10 minutes of the game, to be honest. I mean, everybody kind of saw where this game was going, including the Giants. You saw that they were out of the game. It was over.
I felt the same way. I wish that your prediction had been true for my parlay with 48 points on the over, but the Giants couldn't score. That was the problem. Bill, one-sided beatdown on Saturday night. Did you feel the same way as Pete? A few minutes in, this is in the pocket.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was thoroughly enjoying it because, on a personal note.
Oh yeah, your wife is a Giants fan, right?
My wife is a Giants fan, so her friends were harassing her via text messages, and she was quiet the whole night because she really had nothing to talk about. But in all seriousness, I mean, the Eagles' running game was just absolutely dominating.
Yes.
And I believe I think they finished with 268 rushing yards as a team. That ties if I read correctly this morning, it ties a franchise record for most rushing yards in a playoff game, tying the 1949 NFL Championship team against the LA Rams. The Rams were actually in Los Angeles in 1949. Okay, how about that? So pretty impressive there. Hassan Reddick, I mean, in my mind, he has to have that extra motivation going right now, because there's a kid, he grew up in Camden, played high school football in South Jersey, college football at Temple. So this is like a homecoming party for him. And to be playing in your NFC championship game against your hometown fans, I mean, he's an absolute beast. And, I just don't know what to think about this defense, because in many weeks we sit here and we complain about how the defensive coordinator has no idea what Gannon. Yeah, I don't like to name names. Don't want to put him on the spot. But some weeks we criticize the dinks and the doinks, and how the opposing offenses are just moving the ball with ease. But then you can't ignore all the sacks this team has. I mean, Reddick is the leader of. You don't know which way the pressure's coming from. Mm-hmm. I mean, here you go, Mr. Irrelevant is going to get a taste of it this week. Is he going to be able to handle this Eagles pressure? Because if they pressure him, so.
Yeah, he hasn't seen anything like the defensive line of the Eagles yet. He hasn't. It's not even close.
70 sacks, far and away the best in the NFL. You knew the Giants weren't going to move the ball. And, for both of you guys, I'll throw this out there. Hassan Reddick, starting with the Bears game, who's a monster, getting 2 sacks a game. The best player in the defense, in the entire NFL defensive scheme, in my opinion, the last 6 weeks of the year. And he moved up the ranks to the awards ceremony. But this just reminds you of those teams that when they're defensive juggernauts like this, that's really they have the ability to stymie the other team. And did you guys get that feeling the other night that they were stymieing the Giants? There was nothing the Giants were going to do. And that's a team that scored 31 points against the Vikings.
Yeah, I felt that way right from the start. I mean, that first drive, it was the announcer said it. The announcers, they never say that early in the game, but they said, wow, that looked really easy. I felt like it was over before it even began. And when you have a team like that, a Giants team, because of the schedule, because of a couple injuries to other teams, they kind of snuck into the playoffs. And when you have a team that snuck into the playoffs against a team that, in my opinion, is the best team in the NFC, maybe the NFL, talent is going to shine through. The cream is going to rise to the top. And I think that's what Bill was saying with this defense and Jonathan Gannon. I was happy with what he did the last couple of weeks because he's kind of letting the defenders use their talent. That's okay. I don't need him to rush. I mean, I don't need him to blitz because our front four gets pressure. I just like when they play a little bit of aggressive ball on the outside, and that's what they've been doing. And you saw that with Bradbury jumping the routes. Last season, even the beginning of this season, you wouldn't see the secondary jumping routes. Gannon wouldn't allow that, but I think he's realizing like these guys are on a whole nother level. And I think he's letting them play their games.
Hey, Bill, I think they're watching us. They're listening.
Yeah.
They're making adjustments.
That they are. I feel like the Giants were a hot air balloon against the Vikings, and the balloon burst before the bus pulled up in Philadelphia because it was two completely different teams. I thought the Vikings team was flawed all season. They just looked very inconsistent. I think they benefited from playing in the weakest division in the NFL, maybe next to the NFC South. But like the Cowboys. No, I'll save the Cowboys talk for later. I don't want to jump on the Cowboys yet.
Too easy.
It's too easy. But yeah, I just think the Giants had their big moment in the wild card round, and they just were. The Giants made tremendous strides this year. I will give them credit for that. But at the same time, they're not on the level the Eagles are. I mean, the Eagles just didn't magically get to this level. They built up to this level, and I got to give Howie Roseman credit. I mean, he really put the right pieces in place this year. Built this team around Jalen Hurts. He built a absolutely stacked defense. And when everyone plays like they're supposed to play, I don't think anyone can keep up with us.
Well, Howie Roseman, the draft night king. We'll have more about the Eagles. We'll look at that offense in the second quarter. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. And we've got our own sports doctor with us. The Philly sports doc, Dr. Bruce Grossinger is with us. Doctor, it's great to be with you again. When you were with us a couple of weeks ago, you told us that before the Eagles-Giants game, you thought that Jalen Hurts could be 95%. Lane Johnson could be 90%. They were both very prominent in the Eagles' victory. Now, you told us that 2 weeks before the game. When game time happened, is that the percentage that you feel it played out at? And what is the health status of the team coming out of the Giants game?
I do, actually. I think that they both acquitted themselves very well. Lane Johnson, along with the other members of the O-line, really were the MVPs of the game. Lane was incredible. Nobody got past him. He didn't leave a sack. At a point in the second half, they were able to rest him a little bit using an abundance of caution. With Jalen, it's hard to say, as we talked about Dave and Pete the last time, because they kind of play possum a little bit. You recall after the last regular season game, they were just saying he was in so much pain. And he still mentioned that after this unbelievable shellacking in the divisional round. So I do believe that the shoulder is not 100%, but I didn't see there was one play where Thibodeau landed on the opposite shoulder during the game, and he bounced right up. Other than that, I think Hurts was pretty unscathed. And as far as I could tell, Jalen Hurts is not on the injury report, and we could perhaps agree that Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts are the two most important pieces as we go into the NFC Championship.
Yeah, what we picked up on that too is that when he was scrambling, he went down quickly rather than risk being hit and landing on that as he did during the Bears game. So basically, this team is essentially in a clean bill of health going forward into this week against the 49ers.
Yes, they are. There's some miscellaneous injury talk we could get into. There was a calf injury, although they didn't identify it. If we watched the replay over here where we saw A.J. Brown just took a little kick in the calf. And if you ever had just a slight calf pull, it's annoying. And he was bothered by that. It was just annoying. But he did come back in the game. He was not 100%. I believe he's getting a lot of therapy to his calf. And from what I hear as an insider, A.J. Brown will be full strength. A guy who might come back who could be a wild card is Avonte Maddox, who's been out with a turf toe.
It's interesting.
There's some whispering that he could come back. They've got him fitted with a special brace for his big toe. He's been getting a ton of therapy. And it's all about pain when it comes to a turf toe. They might shoot up his toe and they might put him in a brace. And if he could come in and play slot corner, you could bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson back into safety position, and Blankenship would be coming off the bench. So that's a moving part that I wanted to allude about. Landon Dickerson was out for a few plays with a little bit of a quad strain. But beyond that, I think the team's totally healthy moving into this incredible NFC Championship against a very formidable 49ers team.
And we'll get to that in a little bit, but Bill has a question for you about something we saw last week and how injuries in other games impacted. Go ahead, Bill.
Doc, in terms of the Patrick Mahomes injury, he suffered a high ankle sprain, left the game for a little bit, he came back to play. But is that a type of injury where it gets worse? Like you're playing, from what I understand, you can play, you have the adrenaline going in the game. But how do you handle it heading into a big game like this with the AFC Championship game? And what's your thoughts on how Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense could be impacted by that injury?
It's a great question. Personally, Mahomes is a very tough guy. Most people with high ankle strains don't return to play the same day. He did. They keep a pretty tight lid around it, much like the Eagles. But we could expect some swelling to occur, Bill, in a couple days following the injury. He's getting a ton of therapy to his ankle and to his calf. And it's really similar. When they say high ankle strain, you're really looking at a gastrocnemius and soleus. You're looking at a calf strain. And they're all kind of a heterogeneous pool. That is, they're not identical. So the hope will be that he's going to be taped up a lot. He's going to have a good brace, but he may not be 100%. And when you're going to see Chiefs Bengals, the Bengals are white hot right now. And that injury may have an impact on Mahomes, his ability to throw from different platforms, his ability to be Patrick Mahomes. And it's something we're going to keep a close eye upon.
Yeah. Do you think, but the first thing I thought of when I looked at that game was it said, 80% is about what he would be for a game against the Bengals. Is that a fair number? Do you think it's higher than that? If you had to put a number on it early in this week, where would you put him?
I think it's a fair number. If we were going to take an average of those injuries, and all the injuries are different. Some have some high ankle strains. People are out for 4 weeks. We've seen some Sixers going in. We saw James Harden had a foot injury, and we've seen Harden also have high ankle strains. In the NBA, and again, it's a different type of game. You know, there's a lot of jumping and ballistic activity. If you're going to ask me about a high ankle strain, a typical garden variety high ankle strain, they'd be out for a couple weeks. But Mahomes doesn't have that luxury. So I think that if he was at 80%, that would be optimistic. And it's hard to just put a global number on it because he's such a guy, so acrobatic and athletic, and he uses his legs so much, unlike a Tom Brady or Joe Flacco type of player who's a real pocket player. Mahomes really does most of his damage when he scrambles out of the pocket. But I think 80, if we're just going to, based on the fact he came back to play and actually won the game, that tells us a lot. Analogous to when Jalen Hurts came, he had the shoulder injury and still threw 2 30-yard plays. And that kind of let us know that it wasn't a severe or an unstable sternoclavicular. So with Mahomes, if he had a severe high ankle strain, he physically would have been unstable. He would not have been able to return to play, much like Lamar Jackson. I believe Lamar he had an unstable knee, and I don't think he was physically capable of returning to play this season. So I would put Mahomes at a lower grade of injury.
All right. We're going to see how that plays out going forward. But the doc is going to talk football with us in the third quarter.
I can't wait.
Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. Now, the Eagles in the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers with the biggest winning streak in the NFL. Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy going against the Eagles. Pete, last week, he avoided mistakes. The question this week against this Eagles defense, can he make plays?
Yeah, he's not going to be able to make the same mistakes he made against the Cowboys team with the Eagles defense, because the Eagles are going to capitalize on it. The Eagles defense is a lot more potent. I know the Cowboys had the most turnovers in the regular season, but I mean, you can do the eye test on this. The Eagles are just so stacked on defense at every position. If Purdy makes those same mistakes, something bad's going to happen for that team. And Purdy hasn't seen a defensive line like the Eagles yet. We were just talking about Reddick in the first quarter. He's licking his chops for a rookie quarterback in the NFC Championship. And Purdy hasn't seen. I mean, Purdy could be a successful quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he could become a great quarterback. We don't know that. But yeah, he's still inexperienced. He still hasn't seen a defensive line like the Eagles. He still hasn't seen a secondary like the Eagles. With CJ Gardner back, this secondary is unbelievable. I mean, you can put Slay on anybody you want. Then you have Bradbury, who's been playing out of his mind this year, and then CJG, and then the doctor's talking about maybe even Maddox coming back. So I see Purdy not being as successful as he has been in his rookie season. So I think he's going to probably have definitely the biggest challenge he faced in his entire career.
Bill, stylistically, how do you see this matchup? What are the things we're going to look for in this game?
I mean, I think you can sort of look at the Cowboys game. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, who's an absolute beast of a running back, he didn't really have a great game. They pretty much kept him in check. I don't even know if he had 50 rushing yards. He did have a touchdown. And you got to watch out for Deebo Samuel, and you got to watch out for Kittle. Those are pretty much San Francisco's top 3 weapons. And you got to pressure Brock. I mean, it's like Pete said, he hasn't seen a defense like this all season. If you follow the sort of similar game plan to what you did against the Giants, the Eagles shouldn't sweat this out. But at the same time, you got to respect San Francisco, because they are the hottest team in the NFL. Until someone beats them, that's why they're getting a lot of this attention right now. And I think it's going to be a much better game than last week. I can guarantee you that.
Bruce, how do you see this manifesting itself if they put pressure on Purdy? Is this sack fumbles? Is this you drop the linebackers and you get picks? Is it a pick six? How do you see how this Eagles pressure may affect this young quarterback?
Well, the one thing I noticed about Purdy, I would say he's Minshew on steroids. The thing about Minshew is he's a rhythm quarterback. They're about the same size. They both have great rhythm. And you saw what happened in the Saints game when they got Minshew out of his rhythm. So I see the key not only sacking him, but also throwing different looks at him. And also, the one thing that Gannon doesn't usually do, he doesn't usually blitz. But I think having Kazir White come in at times taking some chances with the safety blitz. The one play where Purdy looked the most like a rookie, you'll recall there were 7 seconds left in the half, and Purdy kind of looked like a deer in the headlights, and he almost ran out the clock. He got down to 1 second. Yep. And when he came, Shanahan gave him a piece of his mind. You know, you could only imagine what he was saying behind the paper. I'm sure he dropped a few expletives. So you've got to get Purdy. He does run well. He sprints out well. He's comfortable throwing on the move. But I think you've got to bring the big boys in. And certainly guys like Brandon Graham and also Fletcher Cox had a really particularly good game. He really ran well against the Giants. He had Danny Dimes running for his life. So I think you need to switch up those guys. And I'm also concerned about stopping the run. Deebo Samuel is a different kind of Swiss Army knife that they haven't faced. He's a great running back. And in his contract, he actually negotiated to not run as much as he did. So this is the NFC Championship. But you basically got Deebo. You have Elijah Mitchell, who actually ran for 50 yards. And like you alluded to, McCaffrey did nothing in the first half, but those 35 yards were really meaningful in the second half, including that 2-yard touchdown. The catch that Kittle made, that circus catch, was a backbreaker in the game. So you have to decide, you're going to probably put a little Kazir White on Kittle. You might need Reddick dropping back, because one of the Eagles over the last few years, one of their Achilles heels, they've gotten beaten by tight ends. And Kittle and Travis Kelce are the two best tight ends in the league, bar none. And Kittle, he's going to find the spot in that zone. So the people that scare me the most on their offense, not as much Purdy. I mean, Purdy is going to get the ball out. You're going to have Slay on Samuel when he splits out. You're going to have Bradbury, who had a great interception. You're going to have Brandon Ayuk. And basically, you're going to have those two guys. And in Kittle, you're going to have to at times double team him. You're going to put a safety on him. And one guy is not going to be enough to tackle George Kittle. He's a complete beast. And so that's how I look at it. But on the offensive side of the ball, I believe that our offensive line is the best in the league. You've got a three-headed monster with Boston Scott. And Gainwell had an exceptional game against the Giants, as did Sanders. So I think if you try to pound the rock against this team, they haven't in recent memory come east and won an NFC Championship game. So with the weather, the fans, these are factors. The Giants game was the loudest game I've attended in a long, long time. And it was electric. And I'm sure it'll be at least that way against the 49ers. There weren't many Giants fans there. If you guys looked, I was surprised. I think they folded 10. Not only did the team fold 10 at halftime, the few fans that were there, they folded 10 and they hit the highway.
Turnpike was jammed early. Hey, yeah, I want to see a video of Vince Lombardi with your medical knowledge with a stethoscope and a chalkboard. We've got a seal here and a seal here. We're running up the alley. Hey, now what is it like? You've been a ticket holder for about 30 years, right? What is the atmosphere like at these games? I mean, and how would you compare what you're seeing now with, say, 2004 and 2017 as far as what it's like at the game? And I'm sure you'll be at the game this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that when we played, I believe, Atlanta in 2004, right, it was very cold. It was very cold at that game, but very active. And that was a very disappointing Super Bowl in Jacksonville. In 2017, when we played the Minnesota Vikings, we really had a great game. And Nick Foles had a tremendous game. And we really had a lead the whole time. So I think it was very loud, but the game was under control. Much like the Giants game, it was really, by the second half, it was really that first half, and it was the buildup. I looked at the fans at Xfinity Live. I literally saw hundreds of thousands of fans who didn't go to the Giants game, who were just there. the crowd control, it was just like, reminded me of a Super Bowl. That's how many fans there were. And this is a 3:00 game, supposed to be a day like today, mid-40s. So I think there's going to be a ton of fans. People are going to go nuts. I have a friend, you can see his picture behind me, Wilbert Montgomery. He's going to be one of two people that may be tapped for the coin toss. If the Cowboys were playing, it would have been a reprise of 1980, and Wilbert was definitely going to do the coin toss. I'm hoping that Wilbert still does the coin toss, because I think they'll go nuts when they see Wilbert come out for the NFC Championship. So I think there's going to be a lot of surprises, a lot of fireworks, and 3:00 can't get here fast enough for me, and we're so excited about it. And we don't want to look ahead to the Super Bowl, but for what I hear, without getting ahead of ourselves, that's going to be one expensive ticket. I think I'm going to either have to donate a kidney or mortgage my house to get a seat if they go.
All right. So we've got all types of possibilities going on, and we'll look at more in the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Bill Gelman, Pete Amato, Dr. Bruce Grossinger with you, the Philly Sports Doc. And here we go. Miscellaneous. Wild card, stunts, blitzes. Pete, miscellaneous fourth quarter thoughts.
I'm just going to stick with what I've been sticking with all season. The Eagles coaching did what they had to do this past game. They're playing against another good coach, Shanahan. Great offensive-minded coach. And I think they just need to continue to let the players be aggressive, continue putting them in the right positions to be successful. I think they came out in that Giants game and didn't hold back. They didn't kind of just like tiptoe their way in. They were aggressive. I think they have to do the same thing and blow this team out of the water from the start. It's going to be a lot closer, obviously, probably in the Giants game. But if we put the pressure on them early, I think with the rookie quarterback, I think we'll eventually break them and win the game.
Bill, it's pretty quiet somewhere in Texas this week.
Yeah, they're used to it by now. I know last week we were talking about, how we would love to play the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, and it would have been a perfect storyline because they split the regular season series. But the Cowboys do what they always do. They don't get the job done in the playoffs. Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions last week, and they get all this attention. But why? And they never live up to the hype. And it's great that the Eagles are once again just sliding in under the radar. And, part of me is a little disappointed that the Cowboys aren't coming to town, but the other part of me is extremely excited that they once again did not live up to the hype.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to see them too. I want the Cowboys to beat the Niners, but now we can at least be happy that all the cockroaches can go back into their little holes until next season when they say last year was a fluke, or, you can insert line here what they're going to say.
As David Akers told the Cowboys at the draft in Philadelphia, the last time you guys won anything, the people being drafted here tonight hadn't even been born yet. And that was 1995 and 96 that the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. Last time they won 2 postseason games. Bruce, we have an opportunity for Andy Reid going against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Does that look likely, or are the Bengals too hot right now?
I think the Bengals are too hot. It's going to be a game where Joe Burrow in the snow wasn't even bothered by it. He's locked in completely. The defense of the Bengals is underrated, but I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Mahomes. They're going to double cover Travis Kelce. I'm looking for Joe to carry the Bengals to another Super Bowl, 28-17. And unfortunately, I won't see the rematch between Andy Reid and the Eagles.
Remember, last year it was the Bengals defense that got them there. They kept Patrick Mahomes out of the end zone from the 5 when it looked like they were going to go in and win the game. They also got the interceptions against Tennessee. And how about the phenomenal play, Bill? You talked about it last week, the play of the playoffs with that batted ball near the goal line and then the long return. That is an exceptionally good bend but don't break defense. And Bruce, I must say that they just physically beat up the Buffalo Bills last week.
Yeah, I would say we did a whole segment on the Sam Hubbard 98-yard return. This has never happened before. Basically, the ball was batted up in the air, and there were 22 people right in the middle of the scrum. The ball, it's like everybody else had blinders, and it bounced right into Sam Hubbard. The running back next to him for the Ravens didn't even see him, and he was rumbling, stumbling, and bumbling for 98 yards, and I think Sam Hubbard's still on oxygen after that.
Yeah, that was a long run. It reminded me of the one several years ago when Andrew Luck for the Colts had a ball batted back to him at the 3-yard line from a running back trying to get in, and it got batted back, and he just ran in. But that was 3 yards. This was a 98-yard game breaker. All right. Hey, Dr. Bruce, I know you've got to go. Thank you for joining us. We'll put your prediction in. So you're thinking you think it's an Eagles-Bengals Super Bowl?
Yes, I'm picking Eagles 31-24, back and forth. The Eagles have the ball last, and they win by a touchdown. I see Eagles-Bengals. It was so great talking to you all. Dave, Pete, and Bill, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime.
Right.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Doctor.
Good seeing you, Doc.
I will have our overtime segment straight ahead. Overtime of Why Eagles Why. Well, last week, Bill and I nailed 4 for 4, and we played it 2. Big one was the Bengals winning. So I'm going to continue on that. I'm saying Bengals and Eagles in the Super Bowl. What about you, Pete?
Well, I've been picking the opposite, so I think I'm going to take another chance here. I think the Bengals are a really good team. Depending on Mahomes, his status, like Dr. Bruce was saying, he's a freak athlete. And if you watch that game that last week, you saw some of the freaky, weird plays that he does. He just was coming up short because he couldn't place that leg down. But I think, I don't know if this is hopeful, wishful thinking, but I would love to see the Eagles play Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs, Eagles, Super Bowl. I think the Eagles take care of business pretty good. The 49ers are a really good team. I think they have a really potent offense. Their defense is obviously good, but I just think the Eagles have too much firepower for them. They have too much talent for them, too much speed. And I think they're going to come out. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's a great leader. He gets his team fired up, and I think they're going to come out aggressive. I think the Eagles can win by 6. So I think Eagles, Chiefs, Super Bowl. That's my pick.
If you are correct about that, there will be 2 weeks of euphoria in Philadelphia leading to that Super Bowl. And Bill, euphoria has been the name of the game here right now.
Yeah. And before I touch on that, I just want to make my pick. I'm going Eagles, obviously. I think they'll win by 8. And I don't see the Chiefs winning this week. I think the Mahomes injury and the fact that I don't think they're as talented as a team as they were in previous seasons. And Bengals are just too hot right now. Bengals winning in the blizzard-like conditions in Buffalo, and pretty much holding Buffalo to 10 points. I mean, in Buffalo is just crazy. So you got to ride that momentum, and it's just crazy what's going on in Philadelphia right now. I mean, we were talking beginning of the season. The Phillies, who were questionable to make the playoffs, they go to the World Series. You have the Philadelphia Union play for the MLS Championship. You have the Philadelphia 76ers, who no one's paying attention to. They're in second place in the East, 4 games behind the Boston Celtics right now. And the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. It doesn't get any better than this, guys.
What a time. What a time. Kind of reminds you of the a time like in the late 70s, right? When the Phillies were hot and the Flyers had that major unbeaten streak and the Sixers were about to win a championship. And I just remember the column in the Philadelphia Daily News. I think it was Stan Hochman, where he goes, best damn sports city in America. And that's about what it's feeling like now, Bill.
Yes, it feels great. And, one of these weeks, I can't imagine what's going to be like at the sports complex this weekend. And you got to remember, you got the casino right next door to the stadiums with a sports book.
Yeah. I might head down there.
Xfinity Live. I mean, it's not just a stadium anymore. It's a whole, it's like a entertainment district in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Pete, I could see you in the middle of the action down there.
Yeah, I don't have tickets to the game. If anybody wants to give me tickets, I go to the game. But yeah, I might head down there just to, get some fun content, do a little people watching.
Maybe you'll run into Parlay Pete while you're down there. All right, hey guys, it's great to see you again. For my buddies, Bill Gelman, Pete Amato, Bruce Grossinger, this is Dave Bontempo saying thanks for joining us on Why Eagles Why. Remember to hit like and subscribe for future videos, and we'll see you next week when the Eagles are talking about their entry into the Super Bowl, we think.